So, the closed network test for the Duskbloods has come and gone over this last weekend. I did get to play, I want to say around 8 hours, give or take. I was not able to do the very first, well, there were 5 sessions, and I was not able to do the first one or the fourth one, since those were from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. my time. But I did get to play the other 3 for a little while. The first one I got to play was the second one. That was 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. I was only able to play that one long enough to get through the 4 tutorials that the network test presented to players. So I didn't get any actual matches in on that one. The third one I got to play the entire time. I got 8 matches in during that one. The fifth one, the final one, I got to play, and that one I think I got 9 matches in. So I was able to play a good amount, and I was very happy with it overall. I know I'm a bit of a From Software stan, so of course I'm gonna like it. Even though like it's a PvPvE kind of game, that did not really have much impact on my ability to enjoy it because I mean, I don't know if many people are going to be able to say this, and I am going to be, I'm going to brag for a moment here, so allow me that. But out of the 17 matches that I played, I won 9 of them. I was very happy about that. My very, very first 4 matches I played, I won. And I played a different character for each of those 4 matches. So I am pretty proud of that. And yeah, I do feel like I overall understand the game, its rules, and how everything works pretty well. So for me personally, I think those tutorials were pretty effective. Now, I'm not really going to talk about my strategy or anything as much as I am just my overall impressions, and I really like it. Overall, I think that it's pretty unique. One of the main things that makes it unique is the whole virtue point system. For an online PvP game, having a concept of victory points and accruing as many of them as possible for XYZ reason, that is very unique. That is very rare to see in an online multiplayer video game. They did mention in interviews, the IGN interview specifically mentioned that there was a lot of inspiration from tabletop games. Now, outside of that interview, a lot of people have been saying that that direct inspiration came from the tabletop game The Settlers of Catan, which I am very familiar with. I have played a lot of Catan in my lifetime, you guys. I play it a lot. And I've got to say, while I like that idea, Catan has victory points. However, what I will say is that the way in which you can accrue victory points in Catan are pretty simple. Like, there's only 3, I think, ways you can get victory points in Catan. Because you can get them from settlements and cities. I'd consider that a category. You can get them from the longest road and largest army. I'd describe that as another category. And then you can also get them from development cards, because individual development cards can just be individual victory points. However, in the Duskbloods, you can get virtue points through the fires that you can ignite. There's these like corpses in chairs surrounded by a purple ring. You can go up to those and you can get virtue points that way if you're the first one to get to them. That's actually, I mean, I guess I am going to get into strategy here. That's one of the main ways that I like to get virtue points. As the match begins, the map opens up and it kind of tells you which areas are going to have more of those than others. So I do like to go for a few of those, and once I've accrued enough victory points in the first round, then I mostly just focus on leveling my character up and getting him skills and stuff that will make him more powerful for rounds 2, 3, and the final round. You can also defeat stronger enemies and trespassers in order to get virtue points. Sometimes this is viable, sometimes it's not. It depends on your character's current level, whether or not you have an alliance already, and how strong the trespasser is that you're going to fight, and what round it is. So those can be helpful, but they can also not be, because it's like, if you're about to get eliminated and you have a certain number of points, and you go and you try and fight a trespasser, but you get help from the other people that you're competing with, and you all get the same amount of virtue points, ultimately it actually won't help you. So you have to be very thoughtful about how you go about getting virtue points when it comes to trespassers specifically. And on the map that we were given, there are certain areas where you are guaranteed to get, I mean, as far as I could tell, guaranteed to find stronger enemies that do drop some virtue points. Now, these aren't trespassers per se, so you can't like summon people in and get them to teleport to you. But there are poisonous beast ridden, I think that's what they're called. There's guaranteed at least 2 of them in the sewers like every time. So that's always a good spot to go if you're at least like level 10. So yeah, you can get them from trespassers, the fires. You can get them from the stronger enemies like the beast ridden. You can get them by going to the sacred, or what are they called? The ritual areas, and going to the gold stakes and holding the Y button down to build up that. And as long as those aren't taken away, you can get virtue points that way. You can get them from defeating other players in those highlighted yellow areas. Now, those last 2, those are only available in rounds 2 and 3. So you also have those. And then you have the sigils, I think they're called. You can get virtue points through those. But I actually tended not to... It's not that I avoided them. It's that I didn't get many chances to get virtue points that way specifically. There were only so many times where that was even an option to me as a player. So it was not super duper common for me to have that as an opportunity. And maybe that'll change with the full game. We will see. But yeah, I guess my point is overall, it's more complicated than Catan in as far as like the number of ways in which you can get victory or virtue points. Like I said, you can only get them 3 different ways in Catan. And in this, you've got the fires, you've got the tougher enemies, you've got the stakes, you have the sigils. There are actually 3 other ways to get virtue points that I forgot to mention. The first of which I'll cite here is just picking them up off of regular old enemies. Occasionally, like when you're fighting just standard Goomba grunt enemies, they'll drop 1 or 2 victory points for you to just pick up like nothing, like it's no big deal. So there is an incentive, aside from powering your character up, to go after just regular mobs of enemies for the occasional virtue point here and there. Obviously, that's not the main way you want to get virtue points, but it is a nice little bonus that you can get for sure. Another that I forgot to mention is events. Now, there's only one type of event. Well, actually, no, there's 2 that I can think of where you can get virtue points because of these events. The first of which is the clock tower. If you climb up to the top of the clock tower and ring the bell, you get virtue points for it. I believe that whoever gets there first gets the most, then the next person, etc. And then there's also the, I forget exactly what it's called, but it's like the star drop. There's like a falling star that virtue points can be rewarded to by picking it up and keeping that on your person by the end of the round. But I never actually experienced it. Like the event happened, but it had no impact on that round that I played. So events are another way that you can get virtue points. And the third is these bonuses that get instilled onto players for doing certain things, like if you kill enough enemies or pick up enough items. Those are the 2 that I can think of that I'm aware of. One of them is called Bloodfane and one of them is called Collector. I think Bloodfane is for killing enough enemies or killing the most enemies out of all the players, and then Collector is for picking up the most items out of all the players. So that makes for like a 5 or 6 different ways in which you can get virtue points in the game. So it actually reminds me more of another tabletop game which I'm much more new to, but I do also enjoy, by the name of Brass Birmingham. It's a little bit more, I would say it's closer to that level of complexity when it comes to how you can accrue points and secure victory. It's a unique concept, and I really do like that. But let's talk about combat a little bit. This game does have that Souls-like combat that we're all familiar with. I would say overall, if I had to compare and say, okay, what From Software games does the Duskbloods take inspiration from combat-wise the most? There are 2 games that come to mind, and for me, those 2 games are Bloodborne and Armored Core. which is a fascinating combination. There's so much more verticality in this game than any other Souls-like from Software's done, to the point where I have to cite Armored Core specifically, with its air dodges, its multiple, you can quadruple jump, you can air dodge, you can do these like air attacks where if the first one lands and you continue to attack, you stay in the air, almost to the point where it feels more like a Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, like an action game to a degree. And each character, whoever you pick, has some form of long-ranged weapon, whether it's Sniper Layla or John Duskblood or, Trang Long or whoever you pick. Every character has a long-range attack of some kind, and they, to a degree, can have some sort of synchronicity with their melee attacks, and I found that to be very interesting as well. This game overall, like, as far as just pacing and feel, obviously, it's going to feel more like Elden Ring Night Rain than anything else, just because of, like, these are fast-paced matches, they take place on, one map or multiple maps, and that's the other thing. There's going to be 3 maps in the full game when it releases. Now, I'm assuming, but it wasn't made clear, I am assuming that these are going to be fully different maps, as opposed to in Night Rain, where every map, all the maps were the same, but they all had some sort of major variance to them, whether it was the giant hole in the ground that was lava, or the mountain in the northwest that was all snowy and shit, or whatever. I do think that these are going to be individual maps that are going to be very unique. So you're going to have 3 maps at launch, and you're going to have at least 11 characters at launch. The closed network test only had 6. But out of those 6 characters, I did kind of list them out from my favorite to least favorite. My favorite being Albert. Again, that's who I jokingly called John Duskblood earlier. He's just, your standard default, like, jack-of-all-trades character, pretty well balanced. And then we have Sniper Layla, who is my second favorite. I would say she's probably, like, the best, or at least the most popular character in the network test. She's got that rifle that she uses that's pretty effective long range. It staggers on hit, but, you have to time it, because if you try and hit someone that you've targeted while they're on the move, you're probably going to miss. But if you do it at a key moment, like right when they're about to heal or activate an ability, it staggers them, interrupts them. Overall, the effectiveness of her range attack alongside her melee isn't super strong, but it's not too weak either, unlike another character which I'll talk about in a moment. So I would say Albert is my favorite, then Sniper Layla, then Bloodhand Yan. I do like him. He feels like a Bloodborne hunter with the hunter's axe, basically. He's got the dodge, he's got the rally system where when he loses health, he can attack immediately afterwards to gain some health back. He has his main, like, opening ability is basically the Hunter's Bone from Bloodborne, where it significantly enhances his ability to dodge fast and over a long distance. His other ability, which you unlock at level 12, I believe, I forget the name of it, but he, like, kind of lunges up and then comes down with his axe and then creates a big AoE. It can be a little tricky to land this attack on players, but it's pretty easy to land on trespassers and other large enemies. So it does have its uses for sure. And if you can kind of third party it when it comes to, like, you see 2 people fighting, you can kind of come in with it and catch them off guard. And I have had situations where that was the move to do, and it definitely worked out for me. So I do like Bloodhand Yan. Next, I would say, I think her name is Trang Long. I only played with her once, but that one match I played with her, I did win. So I do like her enough. Her rings are pretty good. Her ability to, like, go into stealth mode can be helpful. It was helpful when another player was trying to track me down, and then I used that ability and it successfully helped me to escape. Her snake ability is kind of cool. It can be good. I think I need to play her a little bit more to get better with, because when you normally use it, the snake head will, like, come up and go in a circle, but you can also move the joystick forward while pressing that button to make it go for a straightforward attack. I need to get better at aiming the straightforward version of that attack for sure. But I like her enough. I forget the guy's name. It's like Senator or something or other. He's the old dude with the rapier cane where he has the ability to turn into, like, a little T-Rex or whatever. I do like him, but I also think that his main attack is weaker than it should be. And this kind of goes back to what I was talking about with Layla, where her ranged power versus her close range melee power for her attacks are a little bit more optimized and better. I think the Senator, his melee attack is not that strong, and his ranged attack is stronger than you would think, at least for me personally. So I found myself, at least in the matches that I lost, I found myself using the melee for him more than I should have, and using the ranged attack less than I should have. So maybe that's just a personal issue, and I think that is going to be the case with most of these. I do think most people overall will say that Layla is the best character, but either way, the Senator is my number 5 character. And then we have Zork. I only played with him once, and I lost. And I think a big part of it is, like, I do prefer the faster characters overall in any From Software game at the end of the day. Like, you know, my main in Night Rain is Duchess, and my other main in Night Rain is the Wilder, and they're both pretty agile characters for sure. So I do prefer faster characters in these types of games, and Zork is just not that. So again, I think what I need to do in order to get better with him is to rely less on dodging and rely more on guarding and roaring. However, Zork has this ability where his roar is different from every other character, but I don't understand what makes his better other than the fact that, like, it lasts longer. I don't know if it does anything more or not. There are certain things, like little things like that, where I still have some questions as to some quirks from these characters. But yeah, that's my list of the characters. I like Albert the most, then Layla, then Yan, then Trang, then the Senator, then Zork. I obviously will give Zork more of a chance when the full game comes out, but when, you know, obviously with this test I had only so much time to play, I was like, I'd rather just start to get better with the characters that I like more. Now, during this network test, I did have certain, like, just minor gripes, just teeny tiny little minor gripes that I will address here. Occasionally, when I was playing, long-range attacks wouldn't activate even though I had ammo ready, and I did double-check this. And this was particularly when characters were airborne. Now, the two characters that I had this issue with were Albert and Trang. I did not have this issue with Layla, did not have this issue with Yan, did not have this issue with the Senator, so on and so forth. I didn't even have the issue with Zork. One other thing that did happen, and this was only during one match, I forget the name of the area, but I'm pretty sure it was like in the northeastern area of the map. We were fighting a trespasser, the Lady of the Bog, at one point, and it was like in this river canyon sort of area, and she kept on disappearing, or, you know, when she was visible, she was translucent, like the vast majority of the time that I was fighting her. And this felt like a bug in the sense where it's like, okay, the game is trying to teleport her back to a more appropriate area, but it's not happening. So that was kind of weird. There was one time when I think I was playing as Yan here, but I'm not sure. During the final round where it's the top 3 players fighting, there was one point where I was trying to use my shout to interrupt an enemy melee attack. They were playing as the Senator. I was Yan. My roar did not interrupt their attack, and I lost that round because of that. And I think that was like a internet lag issue, but that's like the only internet lag / latency issue that I explicitly faced in my entire time with the game. Another thing I will mention, and this is something that doesn't surprise me personally, but still a little bit annoying, is the vast majority of my matches I did play on my TV. But I did play my final, like, 3 or 4 matches in tabletop mode. And when I switched to tabletop mode, I personally did notice a slight input lag, and it took some time for me to adjust to it for sure. I will say the reason that I saw it, like the reason it didn't really surprise me, is because this also is an issue when you play the original Dark Souls in tabletop mode on the Switch 1. I do have Dark Souls 1 on the Switch 1 and on other platforms. The first Dark Souls is my second favorite video game ever, so I have it on multiple systems. I've played it a lot.
I know what I'm talking about when it comes to it. There's definitely input lag in Dark Souls 1 on the Switch 1, for sure, in tabletop mode. And it's so bad, and even like, I think even in TV mode there's some input lag. It's noticeable enough that like I'm not proud to admit this, but I am stuck on Lord Gwyn. I have not beaten Dark Souls 1 on the Switch because the input lag is straight up that bad. I beat Artorias, I beat Manus, I'm stuck on Gwyn, and I do blame the input lag for that, whether it's tabletop mode or TV mode for Dark Souls 1. That's just to say it doesn't surprise me that the same is the case for the tabletop mode in the Duskbloods on Switch 2. There is no such lag in the base game, but maybe I only say that because I don't have any other consoles to play the Duskbloods on, so I have no other frame of reference. The game did run above 30 frames per second the majority of the time, if not the entire time that I was playing, but it was only at 60 frames per second when there was like almost nothing going on. I've heard that they're trying to make it so that the game runs at a full 60 steadily on day one. I will say if they are not able to pull that off, I would not mind an option where you get to choose whether or not you want the upscaled 4K or you want the 60 frames per second. Because I will play this game on 60 frames a second, even if I have to sacrifice some resolution. Like, I would rather play at 1440p at 60 frames, maybe even 1080p at 60 frames, as opposed to 4K with 30 to 50 frames per second. In gameplay videos online, I've seen people do guard counters where they have their shield up, they get hit, and then they follow it up with an attack. That is a gameplay mechanic that was introduced in Elden Ring, and it seems to have carried over here. But I haven't been able to pull it off. I haven't been able to do it successfully, and I don't know why that's the case. So that's another one of those small little questions that I have when it comes to the game overall. But yeah, I gotta say, I really liked it. Again, I'm a From Software stan, so of course I'm gonna like it. Like, they're really gonna have to fuck up in order for me to not like one of their games, to be honest. I really want a release date for this game. I'm gonna be day one for this. I'm gonna probably get a physical copy, even if it's a key card. But I don't think it's going to be a key card based on the file size of the network test. It was only like 5 or 6 gigabytes or something like that. So I don't expect the full game to be much more than that, to be honest. So I do think this is going to be a full on-the-card release. So I will be getting a physical copy, and I am very much looking forward to it. Let me know what you guys think about the Duskbloods. Did you play the network test? Are you going to be getting the game? Do you have a Switch 2? Are you going to get a Switch 2 for this game? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching, liking, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. And we'll see you all next time.
Until then, keep leveling up, everyone, and take care.